before we get into the actual presentations, I think it's important to give a bit of context what AEDL does, what ELIF is. And for that, I would like to give the floor to our president, Marta Marczis, who will provide a bit of an introduction why we are meeting this today and welcome you all today. So maybe if you are available and ready, Marta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you see me? You see me and hear me, yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So good morning. My name is, as Serafin said, my name is Marta Marczis. I'm the president of AEIDL. I'm glad to welcome over 200 registered participants for today's discussion. That's a great number. As many of you will be aware, AEIDL, the European Association for Innovation and Local Development, is a Brussels-based non-for-profit association that learns from and fosters community-led innovation to revitalize local communities across Europe. AEIDL is more than 35 years old, has provided, or the association, has provided significant contribution to promotion of local development, the social Europe, and the fight against climate change and environmental degradation. Our new strategic plan that was approved by the General Assembly last year for 5 years, and the AEIDL policy statements for the new EU term provide a pathway for continuing our good work in the years ahead. We will work for the new European Commission and Parliament, continue working for member states and local stakeholders to champion innovative, sustainable, and inclusive local actions. We do so through our many research projects, such as those being discussed today, as well as through our role in delivering for the European Commission on a number of key initiatives, such as Rural Park Support Office, or Communities for Climate, FARNet, or the EU CAP network, among many others. In addition to that, AEIDL also brings together over 3,000 stakeholders across Europe through our European Local Innovation Forum, ELIF. We are in an ELIF meeting today. ELIF is a space for experts and organizations operating and connected at a local level in both urban and rural settings to facilitate the exchange of ideas, learn from experiences, and draw lessons to boost innovation in local communities from across Europe. Within ELIF, our territorial development thematic community aims to provide an informal, open-ended virtual space to take stock of where we are across sustainable, smart innovation in local development in rural areas. We are focusing on what can be improved, both for the present programs and best practices, but also in view of the post-2027 EU policy and funding landscape. These discussions have already started with the political guidelines of the new European Commission, and will culminate with the tabling of the new multi-annual financial framework in mid-2025. This is why we are meeting today to try to answer the question, are EU policies really smart and sustainable? To help frame this discussion, our experts, Carla, Lostrangio, Blanca Casares, and Janne Sinerma, will present the findings on 2 policy briefs we have just released. Blanca will be examining whether sustainability practices have been incorporated across EU policies, with a particular focus on agriculture. Carla will consider whether smart rurality across EU policies can contribute to both economic growth and local community well-being. Janne will summarize what have we learned from other experiences and how this will impact the new EU priorities. This research is part of the preparatory work by AEIDL to develop policy recommendations from evidence from a range of horizon projects that we are presenting engaged on. This is why we are most grateful of the coordinators of our ongoing policy research projects, such as the sister projects of Smart Rural FUTURAL, RURACTIVE, Smart ERA, as well BEATLES, which consider the adaptation of climate-smart solutions in agriculture. Lomis, Matteo Gerosa, Claudia de Luca, and Marilena Gemtou, sorry for the pronunciation of the names, I'm not sure about them, will comment on these early findings and highlight the planned contributions for their projects. Today is just the beginning of a new conversation. We are just highlighting the issues we are presently working on, and we would like to work with you. In addition to continue holding these ELIF meetings, you will be able to contribute to the various policy fora, and these projects will be organizing in the next few months, such as the FUTURAL, European Rural Innovation Forum, the RURACTIVE Forum, or the British EU Multi-Actor Platform. I thank you for your contribution today and in advance in the future. Thank you. I give the floor back to Serafin.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, President. As you see, today is just a beginning of a conversation. We wanted to do it now. As you know, the attention now is in the future of the EU, as finally the Commission will start, hopefully, on the 2nd of December. And that's what we thought that was important to try to advance these ideas, to have a fair discussion in the light of the new mandate and based on initial work we have been doing in the projects that are going to be presented today and which will be then developed further. And this is just an invitation for you to join these activities also in the coming months in the specific projects. So we have over 200 people, half of them already in presence, a very big variety of experts and practitioners all over Europe, but also beyond Europe. There's a significant interest, particularly from academia. So welcome all of them. This is part of the European Local Innovation Forum, where with 3,000 stakeholders are part of. And these are a series of meetings that we organize in addition to our project work to complement and sometimes dynamize some of the things we are going to do in our policy research in the various projects. See if my computer allows. Move slide. We're not gonna get into detail because today's discussion we're going to discuss sustainability, climate smart, and smart rural, and how they apply across Europe. This is one of the things we do in these ELIF forums. We're just trying to examine the various versions of or the dimensions of local innovation and smartness, which is not about technology. Sometimes it's just doing things differently, and requires a rather holistic approach. And that's why it fits very well what we're going to discuss today. This is, as I say, a part of a wider exercise, but today we're going to focus specifically on having an initial discussion on how smart rural and climate smart policies really are in the next cycle. I'm speeding up because we're slightly out of time, but I just want to highlight that these discussions are informal, voluntary, online, and we're trying future-driven, and this is part of a wider set of meetings we are organizing every year, over and above what we do in the project. As we discussed, we're going to have present two policy briefs, one on smart rural, another on climate smart policies. We're going to focus across a range of EU policies. This is an initial assessment, and of course we welcome your feedback in terms of whether you agree or not with that. But it's also a first opportunity to have a discussion that then we will have, as the President mentioned, in various forums like the RURACTIVE Forum or the FUTURAL Rural Innovation Forum, which we hope we can actually join us in the coming months. We will be having first, just immediately now, Blanca Casares, which is our expert on rural and territorial development. She will be joined by Marilena Gemtou, which is the coordinator of FUTURAL, BEATLES projects. And then, as I mentioned, Carla will present a paper on smart rurality. Quite interesting. You see with a lot of dimensions to consider across EU policies. And we are extremely grateful that the coordinators Marta, Matteo, Gerosa, FUTURAL, Lomis, and RURACTIVE, Claudia, Luca, has actually joined the discussion and will illustrate what the project will try to do and how we actually can work together on that. And finally, we will have, before we have the discussion, we will have a further stock take of other policy projects that are already concluded. Of course, without not reinventing the wheel, we want to build on what others have done, and that will be the job of Janne Sinerma, our expert, also our expert in Smart Rural, dealing with two projects, RURACTIVE, which couldn't be here today, another project we are involved, and RURACTIVE. So that's too much to talk. Then the president will join us at the end for conclusions of what I hope will be a useful discussion. There will be a debate part after the presentation. And without further ado, I think time is to give the floor to our agricultural genius expert, Blanca Casares, and her presentation about whether climate smart policies do really exist across EU policies. Thank you. The floor is yours, Blanca.
Thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. I hope I can change slides. Okay. Well, my name is Blanca Casares, and I'm grateful to present today and contribute to the discussion on EU policies for sustainability practices. BEATLES is a Horizon Europe project, which is the acronym for Behavioral Change Toward Climate Smart Agriculture, focus on transformational pathways for the adoption of climate smart agriculture practices and smart farm technologies in 5 use cases, as you see. I'm honored to be today with our coordinators. Within the participants from the Agricultural University of Athens, Marilena Gemtou. Since FAO introduces the concept of smart climate smart agriculture at the 2010 AIDS conference, there has been growing support at international, but also at national level for this approach. Climate smart agriculture is not a set of practices that can be universally applied, but rather an approach that involves different elements from a specific context and tailored to meet local needs. The approach uses principles of ecosystem and sustainable land and water management and landscape analysis, and the assessment of the use of resources and energy in agricultural production system and food system. CSA, Climate Smart Agriculture, is an approach with 3 pillars: productivity, climate adaptation, and climate mitigation. Since 2022, the beginning of BEATLES project, AEIDL has carried out a number of activities that have enabled to understand the policy framework that can support the transition to climate smart agriculture. Our work aims to support the policymakers and implementers in the design of policy measures that support the adoption of sustainable and climate smart food system. We have conducted through a couple of tasks, a literature review to identify the role of the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy, in the introduction of behavioral change toward climate smart agriculture. We provided feedback to different EU consultations and also to the strategic dialogue, developed different policy briefs we will see today, and analyze the CAP strategic plans of our 5 use cases countries that result on a policy insight fact sheet that will be quickly presented too. And we have established some dialogues with national experts and also the EU multi-actor working group. We look to influence the political momentum with evidence from the BEATLES project. In this slide, I make emphasis on the political landscape that can support this transition focusing on the key momentum from 2020 and when we expect to use the project results. As you see, it shows, for example, highlights the presentation of the European Green Deal investment plan and the Just Transition mechanism in 2020, the initiation of the CAP strategic plans in January 2023, and in this year, interesting findings from the 9th cohesion report, the report on the long-term vision for rural areas, and for sure the political guidelines up to 2029 after the EU elections, and the start of the CAP negotiations and consultations. And for sure, as I mentioned, as you know, from January, a group of 29 experts conform the strategic dialogue for the future of agriculture. It submitted the report in September, and it will end in a vision for agriculture and food in the upcoming months. Then this landscape is really relevant for us to use our results. The analysis of the CAP strategic plans of each of the 5 countries, as I mentioned, where the project is developing case studies, has made possible to identify the interventions, direct payment, as you see in the slide, from CAP, eco schemes, but also the sectorial support and rural development interventions that support our value chains. You see here the 5 cases and the 5 value chains, and also the CSA practices selected in each of them. The individual fact sheets include also the barriers for this adoption, opportunities for adoption, climate smart agriculture transition, the financial support within the CAP strategic plan, and also the considerations due to the simplification of CAP released this year. They will be available soon. National experts are reviewing them now, and then I make a call. I will put in the chat later on. If you're a managing authority, a paying agency, an advisor, an evaluator from these 5 countries, and you are interested to participate in this consultation, I invite you to write me via email, and you can participate. I will explain later on chat how to do that. In the project, we are coordinating an European group, the EU Multi-Actor Working Group, and as a result of his first meetings, a number of policy areas were prioritized as needing special attention, starting, for example, from enhanced technical capacity among farmers, providing support to meet CSA requirements, guarantee viability, sustainability, and fair competition for small, medium-sized farms, tailoring interventions to their scale, train and encourage policymakers to support both results-based approach, but also behavioral approach when they are designing and implementing interventions, and other needs. More details can be found in the meeting report. I will also make available the link later on. And also an invitation, next session will take place at the beginning of the year on 13 January. I invite EU experts to express interest. And as I said, in our work, we have developed a policy brief, a series of policy brief. We will present today one, but here are a couple of 2 more that I think can shed light on following issues: the road to the post-2027 Common Agricultural Policy, and also an important concept in the project, the notion of supply chain fairness in the EU policies related to climate smart agriculture. And now I pose the question, is the Common Agricultural Policy and other EU policies contributing to climate smart agriculture practices? The policy brief that we present today on barriers and drivers across EU policies to achieve climate smart agriculture integrate an analysis of the European policy framework and his alignment with the 3 CSA principles. We, through the examination of 23 selected pieces of European policy framework, this policy brief delineate the connections, whether direct, indirect, or indetermined between policy objectives and target established in a series of regulations with the climate smart agriculture principles. The 23 pieces cover, as you see, areas of agriculture, food, environment, climate, water, soil, rural, digitalization, and industry. Of course, there are more regulations, you know, but we made this selection to cover all areas relevant for CSA. The results are shown in the next 2 slides. And sorry, I think table is a bit unsafe, but after reviewing the policy objectives established in the regulations, the articles that describe the different objectives, but also the target established in them, we present those regulations with direct and indirect connection, you can see here in green and yellow, to the 3 principles. Increasing agricultural productivity, it means income, the adaptation and the mitigation. It shows as a first idea that to facilitate the swift toward fair, inclusive and sustainability climate practices and also behaviors, it's essential to integrate a systematic approach into both the current and future sectorial policies, ensuring coherence between them and also looking for maximize the impact of our policy framework. The CSA principle on productivity and incomes, the policies with direct impact include, of course, the Common Agricultural Policy, but also the Farm to Fork strategy, the organic production, the labeling of organic product regulation, the schemes for quality certification, the general food law, and the mission for soil and the industrial strategy, the specific pathway for agri-food. At the same time, for the other 2 principles, adaptation and mitigations, policies with direct and indirect goals also include the CAP, is Common Agricultural Policy is supporting all principles and has all the potential to contribute to this transition, the Farm to Fork strategy, but also the biodiversity strategy with specific targets linked to reduction of emission, of course, the European climate law, the organic production and labeling of organic products, the directives for nitrates, pesticides, the water framework, the LULUCF regulation for land and use of land. Also, we have the contribution from the health rules of animal byproducts. We identify some of the flagships of the long-term vision for rural areas, the EU digital strategy, the mission for soil, the new restoration law, and the industrial strategy, also the agri-food pathway. We also were analyzing regulations in proposal phase, like the framework law on food system and the EU carbon removals. And in the next slide is another way of looking at the legislative complementarities to the 3 pillars of CSA in this slide. With this, I would like to conclude with some recommendations. The forthcoming EU vision for agriculture and food and the legislative work program from the Commission needs to have more integrative approach of climate smart agriculture across EU policies. And here I think is the way of working with a perspective of multidimensional between DGs working for key objectives. And with the idea of foster EU green and digital objective to 2030 to 2050. We need a systematic and coherent approach in current and future sectorial policies for fair, inclusive, and sustainable practices. The new tools proposed by the Commission guidelines provide an opportunity to mainstreaming climate-smart behavioral incentives across EU policies. There is a need to long-term perspective for the green sector and alignment with the EU environmental targets. Having this in mind is the way of redesigning, revisiting some of the regulations or preparing new ones. Of course, capacity building for all different actors, not only farmers, managing authorities, paying agencies, advisors, all key actors involved in the design, implementation, and evaluation of policies, align digitalization objectives with the EU sustainability goals into a food system approach, not only agriculture. I think we go in this direction with the new vision for agriculture and food, but more focus needs to this. We need to expand farm-centered policy solutions, small scaler. This has been pointed in the different mission letters and new objectives for the current Commission. And addressing outstanding perverse incentives, still slowing down the adoption of more sustainable practices. With this, I want to thank you. I remain available for any of your question, comments, and I will, as I said, put on the chat the different opportunities where and activities that different experts can participate in the framework of BEATLES and our work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Blanca. I appreciate that is trying to cover addressing climate smart across EU policies, even if grounded in agriculture is a challenge to do that in a few minutes. Before we get to the next slide, I would like to give the floor to Marilena Gemtou from the Agricultural University of Athens, because this research has been done in the framework of BEATLES, and we thought only appropriate to have her today. I don't know if Marilena, you can see. I cannot see you. Or maybe can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Yeah. It's just right. Okay, well, thank you, Marilena, to see you again. Of course, you are familiar with what Blanca has discussed as part of the BEATLES project, but I thought we thought useful for further context to colleagues. You are being involved. You are the coordinator from the BEATLES project, also in the Prudent project, a research project. So you have obviously some idea about why behavioral change to adopt more sustainable practices, particularly, of course, given the nature of these projects in farming. What are the kind of the challenges that, in this case, farmers have in terms of adoption of more sustainable practices? I mean, I think it would be useful for putting the wider context what Blanca just mentioned. So maybe you could like to comment on that.
Thank you, Serafin. So first of all, thank you for having me here. I can see a big group of people, so well done to the organizers. So yes, I'm really happy that I collaborate with Blanca in the policy aspects of the BEATLES project. This project is mainly trying to understand the challenges from the behavioral perspective of farmers and other agri-food stakeholders. So first of all, we have identified a lot of barriers in the policy perspective. Some of these were already mentioned by Blanca. So we see that farmers, first of all, they view policies in a positive light, of course, because they receive subsidies and financial aid to be able to continue their farming operations. But at the same time, some of the policies, they feel that they are too bureaucratic, so it takes time, effort, and sometimes they feel that they do not have the knowledge to follow these policies, or maybe the certification schemes, which they feel that they are costly and very complicated to follow. In terms of subsidies, sometimes, and this is what we have seen, especially in the case study that we have with organic farming. We have organic farming with apples and also organic dairy. And we see that their farmers feel that the subsidies are not high enough. So they feel that they get paid, but these do not compensate for the high costs that they have in terms of input procedures and also the low prices that they feel that consumers pay for organic products. Advisors, they feel that advisors, they are a very important instrument to help them implement these climate smart agriculture practices and adopt smart farming technologies. Sometimes they feel that advisors may have a hidden agenda, so this reduces their trust, but in general, they feel, especially public advisors, that they help them a lot. So we see that we should strengthen this instrument even more. And then we have identified a lot of other barriers from the farmer perspective, like the lack of generational renewal. So there is currently a lack of workforce to be able to work in farming operations. They feel quite insecure and uncertain about the future. So this has also to do with policies, because they feel that there is a lack of long-term vision in policies, and this gives more uncertainty. But at the same time, they have climate change, which reduces production, high costs, input costs, and reduced profit margins. So this causes a lot of uncertainty. And also another, I would like to conclude with this, another very interesting aspect that we continue working on this in Beatles is the fairness aspect. So what we have seen, because we try to understand different views of people with a specific focus on farmers, but also we take perspective of other value chain stakeholders, what we have seen is that there is lack of fairness in the value chain. So farmers on their side, they feel that they take more, the most part of the responsibility of the climate change and the responsibility to the environment in the value chain. So they feel that this is not fair. But if you ask consumers from their side, they also feel that they contribute more to the environment compared to the other value chain stakeholders. So that means that there is an imbalance in the value chain. So everybody feels that something is not fair there. So we need to understand how we can create more fair values, policies, and business models in order to make this transition happen. So I will stop here.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, I think it was very helpful because it complements. I mean, we see that there is some good work already done in EU policies, but as a traffic light identified by Blanca, there's still some way to go, and there's a lot of that comes down to a very individual actor at farm level. I mean, agriculture being 1/3 of the EU policies or EU budget is an important, is a key signifier of the actual efforts to drive more sustainable policies. I have a few more for the discussion later, but at the moment, thank you. I'd like to thank you for your contribution. Being aware of time, I'd like to, without further delay, to move to the other presentation we have today, the other paper prepared by Carla Lostrangio, who is one of well-known expert here in Brussels on smartness, rural development, mountain development. And she's been, apart from leading the policy development of a couple of our projects in this field, she's also actually done a cross-sectoral analysis about how smartness are. You know, everybody talks about smartness, how beautiful it is, how interesting it is. She's trying to go deeper on that. And then we'll have a discussion with the coordinator of the 4 smartness projects that we have at the moment. And actually, there are a cluster of 3 projects, FUTURAL, Marta, and RURACTIVE, who are, like on today, working together. So without further ado, Carla, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Serafin, for this kind presentation. Thanks to all. I feel that it's quite a tight morning to start with policies on a Monday morning, so clapping to everyone who is listening to us. So I'll try to answer to this provocative question. How smart are you, policy? Knowing that what stands behind this question, or saying it in other words, are how are European policies adequate enough to support smart development, and particularly of rural areas? Because this work is grounded on a number of projects that where we do lead the policy work, and which are, as were mentioned before, the Smart ERA, FUTURAL, RURACTIVE, and URBANIVE projects, which focus on smart rural development, and is also grounded on a recent policy brief, which was just published, and we hope that you will feel then like reading more about that. So going forward, why are we speaking about smart rural development and smart development? Because there is quite some evidence by now that smart development can trigger innovation, but can also help channeling innovation into solving some important challenges, such as demographic challenges, social challenges, and in terms of rural areas to help like bridging the gap in terms of service provision, improving the quality of life, help solving also climate change issues, so on and so forth, up to the point of boosting rural attractiveness, boosting the rural economy, and improving well-being. And this has been evidence, and here I wanted to put a timeline, because smart development is mostly rooted into smart cities. But over the last 10 years, we have seen it quite popping up at rural development by rural communities themselves. As you can see on the bottom part of this graph, rural communities have been asking for smart development through a number of declarations, such as the BLED Declaration, the Smart Islands, or Smart Mountains Declaration. And this has been quite heard at European level and uptaken through a number of working groups, such as working group by the ENRD, the European Network of Rural Development, up to being integrating in the EU long-term vision for rural areas and a number of leading policy. So there's been quite of an expansion and recognition that smart rural development can be indeed quite interesting for bridging the gap and leading towards this territorial cohesion, regional convergence, which by now is again quite discussed with the new commission set up and how it's going to be. So going forward, what is smart? Just to provide a definition, smart rural community are basically communities in territories which are building upon their own strengths and assets, and to meet their own needs, but also to set up a desirable future, a future of where we want to go and where in the area we want to live, and with an improved quality of life. So there are a number of definitions which sometimes they are quite large, also to allow community themselves to define what is smart for them. And but this is more or less what basically stands in terms of process. And there are also a number of conceptual or operational framework to try to understand how a community can become smarter. And here I try to put some of them together from the policy, and perhaps the most outstanding is the long-term vision for rural areas, which is quite interesting because it's at the same time quite holistic, but as well agile through the 4 pillars, which probably most of you know, the stronger rural areas, more connected, prosperous, and resilient. There are a number of other framework, such as from the science side, mostly based on the 6 pillars of the smart city framework: people, living, governance, ICT, environment, energy, economy, and few more which are put forward by Smart ERA, FUTURAL, and RURACTIVE and tested through those projects. So I try to compare, but here what I specifically want to highlight that key components are all multi-sectoral. So all of this framework, they highlight the needs of considering holistic planning for smart rural development. They usually both, all of them highlight the important role of social and digital innovation. ICT, so meaning information and communication technology, is perceived as an enabling factor, but in particular in the literature is quite underscored and highlighted that there is not a causal direct relation between digital transformation and smartification of rural communities. What does this mean? That digitalization by itself is not enough to have smarter communities, but other points need to be addressed in planning. And moving forward, another quite important aspect which I would like to underline is this notion of smart rural readiness level. So meaning that in order to make communities smarter or help them to give basically the tools for being smarter, a certain level of technological, operational, environmental readiness is needed, is instrumental to achieve this smartness. And basically what does it mean is that policy programs, investment, they need to prepare the ground for community themselves having the tools, the skills, but also the enabling condition to become smarter. And this readiness can be open up, and some scholars, they try to further disentangle what does it mean. The technological readiness, so having the technological tools, skills, infrastructure, the organizational, meaning people and groups, collective capabilities, and environmental readiness rather refer on having enabling sector, enabling set of policies, of actors, of alliances, which can in fact help achieving smart rurality, of giving better likelihoods of success towards achieving smart rurality. Setting up this framework, we try to look at what are the existing policy support. Maybe colleagues can help mute. Yeah, thanks a lot. What are the existing instruments which provide policy support to smart rurality? And we try to look at those, and there are quite few, which do act at different territorial scale and do act and do address some specificities, some specific elements. Another important point is that some of them are grounding on existing legislation, while others are not grounding on existing legislation. And perhaps one of the most known, though be also quite recent, are smart villages, which indeed support innovation experimentation at rural village level or in quite of a tight granular perimeter. And by now they are enshrined in EU cohesion policy and the EU CAP, at least over the last programming period. And we are going to see how it's going to proceed forward in the future. But there are other tools which are instruments which are out there, such as the smart specialization strategies, which do act more on a regional level, and they are used to set up regional industrial specialization. In fact, in science and several scholars, they do claim that this is not yet fully used to support smart rurality, but this is indeed quite an interesting tool that could be further used to do so. Why? Because so far is a precondition for accessing cohesion policy funds, for instance. And the other two important tools and interesting are the startup villages, which is also quite recent and which is likely to be further developed because of the current emphasis of the Commission on startups, and is specifically targeting entrepreneurial innovation and skills. And the more known CLLD and leader approach, which focuses on local development and is quite of a historic range of successes and evidence on its ability of delivering, in fact, innovation at the local level and delivering, therefore, better local well-being and strengthening social cohesion and so on and so forth. But moving forward, we try to look a little bit more in depth because in addition to these tools which are out there, sectoral policies can also help supporting smart rurality. And how we did so, we looked into 27 pieces of existing legislation or strategies, and we really looked into the policy design. And we tried to understand how this existing policy, whether they do or not, foresee some support to technological, organizational, or environmental readiness of rural areas. And this is graphically what you get, so kind of a heat map. The green colors highlights those policies that they do both target the specific readiness field, so either technological, organizational, or environmental, and they have specific mention on rural areas. The yellow one are when a policy is addressing this readiness level, but there are not specific either targets or measure or activities on rural areas, and while red is when is lagging behind in general. And you can see from this overall picture that there are some policies such as the Common Agricultural agricultural policy, cohesion policy, the EU long-term vision for rural areas, of course, they specifically address the readiness level quite holistically and specifically to rural areas, and others are, for instance, the EU Talent Booster Mechanism, while others, they do address a readiness level, so they do want to create this enabling condition, but they are missing some more specific mention or more specific attention to rural areas that, as we want to remind, are quite a big important parts of Europe's surface and Europe population. So this is what we found out by this quick assessment. And just to sum up and then move also towards the discussion, my two final slides. So smart rurality can be seen indeed as an approach to boost rural growth, rural innovation, well-being, and territorial cohesion, therefore, because by bringing all of these pieces together can be leading towards better regional convergence and perhaps bringing together and help converging this dilemma in between competitiveness, but at the same time, making sure that this is not done at the expense of regional convergence and territorial cohesion. Up to now, we do have quite of a common conceptual understanding on key components of smart rurality, what does it mean, and it's very interesting, this notion of technological, organizational, environmental readiness, which is indeed needed to boost, to prepare the ground, let's say, for smart rurality. However, analyzing European policies, there are specific support to smart rurality, and some are specifically targeting indeed rural areas, but some they do miss these targets and attention to rural areas, and others they do miss measurable targets, measurable indicators when it comes so. Organizational readiness is overall the most addressed across the policies we have analyzed, followed by environmental readiness, and technological readiness is a bit more lagging behind. And when it comes to sub-indicators, the least addressed to achieve smart readiness are the willingness of rural citizens to utilize IT services, the digital device ownership penetration, and electric liability. And then, so based on this analysis, we wanted also to put forward some recommendation and food for policy thoughts. In fact, first of all, indeed, is besides further addressing in those policies that do not do so this smart readiness level in order to create an enabling policy condition, is very important to move forward on setting targeting objective measures and investment, as has already been called by the Committee of the Region, for instance, about a year ago through a specific opinion. It's very important that whatever measure they address or they focus on smart rural development are embedded into wider programs, into wider territorial scheme, such as the ongoing local development strategies under the CLLD and the leader approach, the smart specialization strategies, micro-regional strategies, operational programs, national plans, the CAP strategic plans, but also the territorial agenda. So there is, they do not stand alone, but they are basically grounded on a wider territorial, let's say, transition scope. That smart rurality and measures are aimed at fostering simultaneously the technological, organizational, and environmental readiness, and all of them are quite important. And this has not done at the expense of forgetting sufficient support to basic technological needs. So one of the reasons and one of the things we have found out is that sometimes strategies, they do not address, for instance, energy poverty or willingness of citizens to be part of the digital transition, and that's why some of the policy sectors policy they score quite low on that. So it quite require an attention in this overall reflection. And then to move towards this rural smartification, so transition to smart rural areas, is important to remember that empowering rural actors also needs to pass through specific measures such as small-scale innovation skills, simplified options, and one-stop shop platforms. So let's make life easier and less bureaucratic for people which are on the ground. So measures which are aimed at implementing those strategies, they need to be fit for actors which are living those territories. And the last point, there is a very important focus on social innovation, which shouldn't be missed out when we speak about smart rural development. And this is highlighted in several projects, including the projects where we are involved. So thanks to all, and I move back to Serafin.
Thank you, Carla. Again, quite a challenge to summarize these findings, covering so many policy areas. I think it was very clear, and the traffic light, as you said, is a good indication to do that. But maybe now is the time to actually ask the projects into which this research is contributing to, Smart ERA, FUTURAL, and RURACTIVE. And as we are lucky to have the coordinators, Matteo, Ari, and Claudia, what do you think about, just opening question, what do you think about what you just heard, whether you agree, but also more widely, how do you think your project can contribute to smart rurality and addressing the issue between competitiveness, but also well-being and development in rural areas? Maybe, Matteo, we'll start with you. Thank you.
So welcome everyone, Matteo Gerosa from Fondazione Bruno Kessler, Italy. I'm the coordinator of the Smart ERA project. So it's quite a complex question because you asked a lot of stuff. But let's start from our project. So first of all, we are a technological project, but we strongly believe that it's true. One of these recommendations, we must consider together technology, social innovation, policies. And in fact, this was the core idea of the project Smart ERA. So to create this kind of smart innovation packages where the technological aspect is only one element of the puzzle, that if put together with other elements of the puzzle can create a picture that help the rural area addressing its key aspect. Technology is not enough. It's true. I worked in smart cities since a lot of time in the past, and there are advancements that are useful for cities that are also useful for rural area, like simply, I don't know, the digital identity. So the fact that you can, even from a rural area, connect and use any services. But when you want to find a place for your kid after school, that's not a digital services. You can have whatever you want, but you can't put you cannot put your kid in a digital environment. So you really need the social aspect, social innovation put together with this technology innovation. One aspect the project is at the beginning, but one aspect that we are creating now that can be useful, I think, for policies is this we call the Smart ERA smart assessment method. We analyze about 30 smart assessment methods for rural area. All of them are good and partial in a bit, so we try to put this together in a new, let's hope, a new and innovative smart assessment that includes qualitative and quantitative method that include differentiation into sector of smartness and indicators. And the goal would be to draft and create a standard for rural community and villages as it occurred with the indicator for mass cities that were approved by ISO in 2019. So this, of course, is a big goal, but with the help of our good partner in Smart ERA, among which is EIDL, that will help us a lot in this. We hope to make it so. But I don't want to use too much time because I think I spoke more than enough, and I let my colleagues from the other project take charge.
Thank you. I think we are ambitious, but we hope to get there, particularly developing that standard. Maybe Ari, you'd like to provide a bit of a specific angle on the same question from the perspective of FUTURAL.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. My name's Ari. I'm the project manager of FUTURAL. I'll just start by giving just a really quick background of what we're doing at FUTURAL. So we're co-creating social, technological, and business innovations to address key challenges in rural areas. And within the technological component of that, we're going to develop, test, and demonstrate a set of digital smart solutions with rural communities to improve sustainability, resilience, and the quality of life in rural areas as well. So if we look at what smart rurality is, it's about making rural areas more connected, sustainable, and adaptable to challenges. So I think at its core, it's about empowering rural communities to tackle modern challenges while maintaining their unique identity and way of life. So how do we achieve smart rurality in FUTURAL? So we achieve it through a combination of innovative approaches, community involvement, and through tailored smart solutions as well. So we have the co-creation component with local communities, where we directly involve the rural stakeholders in the co-creation process. So this matters because it helps local communities define their needs and co-create solutions that meet their needs, ensuring that, and this ensures that the innovations are relevant, practical, and they're widely accepted as well. So, so for example, in Austria, we're working on a platform that helps people in Austria find ways to reuse and recycle food and plant-based materials. So it's a circular bioeconomy platform. And this kind of it creates new opportunities for sustainable resource use and economic diversification, etc. Secondly, we're developing tailored smart solutions. As I mentioned earlier, we got a prototype, test, and implement these solutions in rural areas across Europe. So each solution is designed to address specific local challenges. So, for example, in Lithuania, we're working with farmers to co-create a bison monitoring tool that provides location data to locate bison on a map to prevent crop damage while promoting sustainable diversity management. We're also bridging the digital divide as well. So we're developing a meta search platform, which will be like a one-stop shop platform for rural communities where they can access the smart solutions as well. We're also organizing capacity building workshops across the pilot areas across FUTURAL. These workshops are basically to ensure that communities can confidently and better engage with and benefit from the technologies we're developing. And through the co-creation with rural communities, we ensure that digital tools are practical and user-friendly and tailored to make basically to the local needs, increasing the usability and adoption of the solutions as well. Then we're also working on strengthening resilience and sustainability. So we're promoting community-led innovations and new business models that focus on long-term resilience and environmental sustainability. And this matters because rural areas can better adapt to challenges like climate change and depopulation, etc., while also creating economic opportunities as well for the rural areas. And then, of course, we're supporting policy and governance frameworks as well. So what we're doing is we're developing policy recommendations and governance models to sort of integrate the smart solutions into the EU and local strategies. So in summary, FUTURAL, smart rurality is not just about technology, but it's about sort of also empowering rural areas to take charge of their future, and by providing them with the tools and support they need to survive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. And Needless to say that there will be a European Innovation Forum by FUTURAL in May, where people actually, if you're interested in further the specific angle of FUTURAL, you're more welcome to join us. The three projects are complementary because they're the same cluster of projects, but of course they have distinct identities. In the case of RURACTIVE, perhaps Claudia de Luca from UNIBO, the coordinator, maybe like to highlight a bit more the social innovation, social capital aspect of the project and what makes unique, distinctive RURACTIVE in this set of projects. Thank you.
Hello, Serafin. Morning, everybody. Thanks a lot for the invitation, and thanks to Carla for summarizing a bit the environment where we're working. It is, the process we are following, it is a bit diverse, let's say. First, and this is, going a bit in another direction with respect to many projects on rural development. Agriculture is one of the focus that we have, but it's not the only one. So when we speak about local stakeholders, we do speak about farmers, but they are one of the group among a much wider so-called rural innovation ecosystem that is made by let's say, true multi-actor approach that works on several drivers that are also touching upon tourism, energy, mobility, culture, health. Because, of course, if we do provide all the services to live and to stay in rural areas, then, most likely people are not going to leave, or, we hope that they're not going to leave, mostly young people. And we work in these 6 different drivers through 3 so-called cross-cutting priority. There are climate change adaptation and mitigation, biodiversity, and social justice. And on the last one, the social justice aspect, it really goes into the direction that Serafin was actually asking. And it really maybe include another so-called readiness level. With respect to, again, what Carla mentioned before, that is the societal readiness level. This is something that we spoke about in our project. It is a bit in between what you call the environmental one. The idea is to have communities that are actually ready to accept the kind of innovation that we may propose, maybe digital or non-digital. And to do so, we have different tools in the project. One is the idea of the so-called local community trainer. So we would really like to train people, mostly also the so-called people and group at risk of exclusion in this area. That could be elderly, that could be women in some cases, could be migrant, could be LGBTQ, because we know that there are issues in rural areas that are much stronger than in urban areas, and these people are much more likely left behind. So the idea is to try to fill the gap of different digital gap, gender gap, age gap in a kind of an intersectional way. And the idea of the local community trainer is to have a person that is actually trained by one of our partners, there is the Fab Lab in Barcelona, to then give training locally in person. So we would like to bridge this gap, really having a person within the local community that will be able to, act as a ring, in between the project and the local community. So this is definitely one of the main points, how to, with a social innovation, try to reduce digital, but not just digital gaps. And the other point where we are really working, I already mentioned the fact of establishing this rural innovation ecosystem with a diversity of stakeholders, let's say, that are working on the different drivers, so that are really spread by, from culture to mobility. But it's not just that, again, because, among the stakeholders, we wanted to have in our rural innovation ecosystem, again, representative from the groups at risk of exclusion, so that we are sure that from the very beginning of the co-development of the local and place-based solution, they're going to be involved, their needs are going to be raised, and we know what are the challenges that they also face from the very beginning. One of the things that we are reasoning about that has a lot to deal with policies, and to me is one of the most complex things at the moment, is why it's so hard also to make people aware in rural areas of the possibilities that are there in terms of funding, for example. And one of the answers that we have so far is that there is probably a huge fragmentation, and again, this goes very much in line with what Carla was saying at the end, I personally believe that is not enough to integrate a certain component of smartness and social innovation around the different level that you were mentioning, because this can create then at local level a further fragmentation. What does it mean? That in some cases we have national policies for rural development, other are regionals, other are local. Like the local action group, for example, relate to some administrative borders, but then the smart specialization strategy that you were mentioning relates to other administrative borders. So let's say that close administration of 500 people, municipalities, they do relate to different then policies and funding process. And this is an issue, and this is why maybe a rural innovation ecosystem are not as developed as urban innovation ecosystem, because I mean the borders are not that clear, the area of interest is not that clear, the type of actors and innovation is probably different, the one that we have to consider. The so-called innovators in urban areas like university, research centers, startup and spin-off are not as present as in urban areas, in rural. So there is definitely something that we want to work upon in this reducing fragmentation, let's say.
Thank you. I mean, it's quite clear as well. It's particularly helpful, this contraposition between the ecosystem defining cities and urban areas, but also I think it's one of the key elements of RURACTIVE, the social and the actual inclusion of the most harder to reach groups. So I think, again, one thing could be said as well is that if you are interested, colleagues, if you're interested in this particular offering by RURACTIVE, there's going to be at the beginning of the year a RURACTIVE forum where a lot of this discussion we're going to get dwell further, and we'll communicate on that in due course. Now, before we get to a bit of a wider discussion with the many colleagues who join us today, my colleague Janne Sinerma, who is also an expert in actually managing one of these projects, RURACTIVE precisely, as well as URBANIVE, has been conducting extensive research in the many years, and certainly as part of AEDL, in how existing projects, research projects, have addressed the issue of smartness. What we can learn from that, because of course in AEDL we don't want to just reinvent the wheel or just say things for the sake of it. We want to see what has been done before and actually build from that, and that will be a key element to actually contribute to the research we're doing for these projects and others. So maybe without further ado, Janne will provide a quick overview of what we have learned so far from the clever people who have preceded us in this task. Thank you.
So thank you, Serafin, for your introduction. Good morning, everyone, from my side. My name is Janne Sinerma, and I'm giving you a brief presentation on stock take on previous, let's say, experiences and knowledge gained from the Horizon project, because like Serafin mentioned, we are not here to reinvent the wheel, but rather than using the already existing knowledge and possibly complementing some of the already existing knowledge and what's gained there from the previous projects, so we could actually supplement the things. I'm mindful about the time, so I'm giving you a brief presentation. So we already know that the European Union has long been developing different policies which both foster the innovation and the sustainability part. So we have here at AEDL, we examined 15 recently closed Horizon projects and tried to use all the policy materials created through the projects, such as the policy recommendations, all the deliverables, all of the policy briefs or different presentations we could muster up and try to gather them in a pool and make this synthesis of how the EU policies can actually be made smarter and more sustainable. So smartness in the policy framework, it was mostly focused on the different, data-driven decision makings, utilizing the advanced technologies, and of course the cross-sector collaboration. Try to aim to enhance the governance and service delivery. So there is, for example, the data-driven governance, which was described as importance of utilizing different kind of data to inform the policy decision making. There were projects that were incorporating the AI and digital platforms that demonstrate like real-time data analytics and how they could actually be used to improve the effectiveness of policies. And there was also the infrastructure and connectivity, because we are mostly talking about the rural areas here. These are extremely important. So the developing a robust digital infrastructure, especially in the rural areas, and that it's just like it's not there just to supplement or support the economic growth, but also the social inclusion by creating access for education, healthcare, or, for example, digital services. Cross-sectoral innovation with smart policies, it always involves collaboration between the different sectors such as agriculture, energy, and transport. And the aim is just to try to break down the silos and the sectoral policies create more synergies, and this in advance leads to different, comprehensive and more sustainable solutions. And there is also governance models for smart cities and villages. Several of these processes emphasize the need for flexible and more inclusive governance models. So the sustainability in these policy frameworks, which was basically aiming for creating long-term solutions that balance the economic growth with the environmental protection and social equality. So there was the resource efficiency and the circular economy. So there's need for us to optimize resource use and minimize waste through development of different circular economies. And this was mentioned in the several of the Horizon projects which we reviewed. Climate resilience and adaptation, of course, it's a core aspect of sustainability, and with that we are building resilience to impact of the climate change. And like Carla already mentioned, the social aspect, so social equality and inclusion, if we are actually aiming for sustainable policy, we have to address after the social aspect, that creating that no one's left behind, and with this transition to greener and more sustainable economy. And of course, sustainable food systems and rural development, it's in the sustainability agenda, and we have to prioritize the transformation of food systems, that they are environmentally sustainable, economically viable, and socially inclusive. So we try to also address the question, how can we make the EU policies smarter and more sustainable? So these are just the synthesis of the reviewed project, and try to address the questions of smarter and sustainability. So there's the leverage for technology for sustainability. For example, integrating advanced technologies such as AI, Internet of Things, or big data into sustainability initiatives, which we can aim for optimizing resource management, improving efficiency, and reduce the environmental impact. Promote cross-sectoral collaboration. Smart policies always requires this collaboration aspect, both horizontal and vertical. And with this, there's a possibility to foster partnerships between industries, governments, and civil societies, and this could create more comprehensive and integrated solutions for this complex challenge, such as climate change and socioeconomic inequality. Supporting localized and decentralized governance, of course, try to empower the local communities to manage their own resources. They're more maybe flexible or more nimble, and they can actually create these local level sustainable solutions to tackle the challenges. Strengthen the digital inclusion and connectivity. It's one of the key aspects, and this actually requires continued investment in the infrastructure, as well as improving the digital literacy. incorporating the circular economy principles, we are trying to, of course, creating regulatory frameworks that incentivize businesses to adopt these sustainable practices, such as, for example, reducing waste or improving the energy efficiency. So it's an important aspect, and not least is the social equality in the green transition. We has the EU aiming for this transition to more low carbon economy. So it's extremely crucial that we actually ensure that everyone is on board and no one's left behind. So this requires different kind of targeted support for regions and communities which are particularly vulnerable to economic and environmental changes. So we have to try to promote the job creation in green industries and provide different kind of retraining programs for workers that, you know, and ensure access affordable energy and housing in the European Union. So this is in a nutshell what we've done here. And now I give back floor to Serafin, and he gives us a brief look on what's coming up ahead. So Serafin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Definitely just go straight to the discussion, but just to highlight that, for instance, what you have heard now from Janne, if you're interested to delve that further and what we have learned, we'll have early in the year the RURACTIVE forum where we're actually going to discuss this in detail. We are keen to make sure that this is we're saying something original, not just saying what people have said in the past, and actually trying to go a bit more in detail than they have. I just trying to advance the screen, but for some reason the screen. Could I have the next slide, please, my colleagues? Okay, just to say before we get over the discussion, and we are aware of the time, that you know that we have discussed so far, the colleagues have discussed so far how we can got to here. Just to say that in the coming months, certainly from the 2nd of December, the Commission will start preparing new legislation to commit with the guidelines. We're trying to do in this AEDL work, in particular through FUTURAL, RURACTIVE, ERA and BEATLES, to contribute to policy solutions. Some of that, the background for these preparations is what you have heard today, a good deal of that. There's more being prepared. And you will be, as I say, you will be able to help us on that. The coming months, we have the RURACTIVE Forum in the first quarter of the year. We already got fixed the Rural Innovation Forum in FUTURAL, and as well as the EU MAPS meetings in the beginning of the year. There will be further opportunities for you to contribute, in addition to ELIF meetings like today. And our idea is to do it in line. We see the new political guidelines positive in the way that there's a technological element, there's a drive for simplification, but we also see a number of threats because depending on, as Claudia has mentioned, depending how you actually design policies, then they make no sense on the ground. And even if there's a claim for they're going to be for more simplification, more integration, even the idea of the freedom to stay or right to stay, as some people will say from the letter report, we would like to continue to make sure that this actually makes sense based on the evidence we are getting from the various living labs, dynamos that we have in the various projects we are contributing to. So that's all for to say in terms of talk. Next slide, please. Because I think even if we are aware that it's slightly behind the time, we still like to have some conversation with some of you, because some of you might thought, well, that's interesting, or it's not clear enough, or completely disagree. I think now is the opportunity for the many of you who actually join us today to make any question and any request. I might not see your faces, so if you you can also take the floor. Maybe we can open the floor, as I say. Does anybody would like to make any reaction to what you just heard today? Whether it makes sense, not make sense, or should we work better? Any feedback is good at this stage, as we are in the initial stage of this policy recommendation. Like anybody to take the floor? I don't see. Let's see if I see everybody. Inel. Yes, Inel. I think Inel Burak.
Yes,
Burçak.
Burçak. That's right.
Oh, it's Turkish, of course. Burçak. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Really very nice discussion. Thanks a lot, and thanks also for the underlying work. So I represent the European Banking Federation, which is the umbrella federation for all the banking associations in Europe. And agriculture is one of the sectors that we're starting to look at a little bit. And of course, I take that rural development is broader than that. I just wanted to ask whether finance has come up as a major obstacle in any of these studies, and so just some general thoughts on that. And I do hope to work with many of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe Blanca, maybe or like Carlos would like to comment on that.
Yes, of
Blanca?
course. Thank you so much. Thank you, Inel, for the question. Of course, financing, even like task adaptation to different groups, access to finance for modernization at farm level, for the adoption of technology. I'm sure Carla has something to say, is a specific need. Sometimes through the CAP interventions, there are some options to adoption of new practices, but it requires an investment on machinery, adaptation of the farm, and so on. And also, as Marilena said, what we see in different consultation, not only with farmers, but also with managing authorities implementing these funds, is that due to the lack of generational renewal, the pressing challenges like climate change, the changes on regulation, not only on the programming period, within the programming period, changes on the conditionality, all this make difficult to have this perspective to invest at beneficiary level. Has been mentioned in several consultations and also in the new political guidelines, the needs for more public-private agreements. I'm sure the new commission is going to explore this a lot, the private investment for agriculture, but also all the sectors linked to the full value chain.
Maybe yes.
Yeah, I wanted to add also something on that, and thanks for the question. I think from the side of the smart rurality, so looking a bit broadly than just agriculture, how it was also mentioned before by Claudia, for instance, which is one of the project coordinator, is the matter of fragmentation. Smart rurality is quite complex because it's quite multidimensional. So it's basically going back to different portfolio and trying to put them and pull resources together in order to drive quite a multidimensional process and more complex, which might be not easy for actors or actors in general, which are on the ground, to know to whom to go and having to go at several doors. So this is definitely a challenge linked with the bureaucracy and red tape. Something else I would like to highlight on that is that a lot of supports when it comes to smart rurality, such as smart villages, but also the specialization strategies are depending on as well member states. So how do member states are defining measures for supporting those instruments in particular, and therefore funding is also depending with respect to that when we speak about public funding, and therefore is right now where we are discussing also the future of the EU budget. You can imagine what are the consideration, because there might be some reshuffling of the European budget across portfolio. An important point which perhaps we have not highlighted enough is also the role of a private sector, which could be as well leading or supporting the transition, and which we have not yet explored enough, because these projects are still ongoing, and we hope and we certainly are going to be doing more work in this regard.
Thank you. Indeed, this is the start of, or the stock taking or the beginning. It's the start of the beginning, so to speak, of, as you can see, we have done analyze a lot of strategic level. We are getting into the more granular aspects now, but we thought useful to have that conversation with yourselves, but also invite you to join us in the various forums and activities, policy discussion we're going to have. I see Arno is available, so maybe like to make the question, as I see your hands up. Arno Rosmarin.
Thank you, Serafin. Arno Rosmarin from the Stockholm Environment Institute and one of the partners in the BEATLES project. And I was going to ask the experts that have made presentations about the EU cluster policy. I suggest that as one of the methods to address challenges surrounding smart agriculture and also smart rural challenges. And the example is from Poland when we were working in the Baltic Sea region about bridging farms with sewage treatment plants, with energy producers, taking waste and turning it into resources. So we're looking at transfer of manure and also human manure back into soil systems, looking at the methane gas being produced by pig farms and taking those and being used in energy production, also methane from sewage treatment plants. And the list goes on. The EU policy on cluster is not new, but I don't see it really gripping the Green Deal properly, certainly in reduction of carbon wastes. And to me, it's a giant, a potential giant that could be put into place where waste becomes a resource.
Thank you, Arno. I mean, definitely ties very much with the new political guidelines of the Commission and the Draghi report in particular, where these massive investments and integrated packages are being discussed, and apparently there's going to be a lot of funding for that. We'll see about that. That's one of the things we're going to examine in the next few months until July, where the budget is presented, the new budget, post-2020 budget. I don't know if Blanca or Carla, or for that matter, Marilena or other colleagues would like to react to that.
Yeah, I can react. Thank you, Arno, and thank you for participating today. These EU cluster actions, or let's see the part of EU cluster partnership, I think they are presented at EU-wide consortium pools, really focus on industrial ecosystems linked to the new industrial strategy and pathways, and really focus on SMEs, on social small medium enterprises. I think is there where the potential of these cluster policies will bring has been mentioned in for the different commissioners' mission letters and so on. The support of SMEs is crucial. The role of SMEs is crucial. The partnership between between public and private, and I think these EU-wide consortiums will make a role. I think still in an explorative phase, how to really make a strategic use of this, but we will see how evolves.
Thank you. I think we have time just for a question. I see people obviously have to leave. That's the thing of Monday mornings. There's always things coming in the desks of waiting for you. But I think we have Jeremy Milad who would like to make a question. Maybe we'd like to conclude with that question and the answer. So Jeremy, the floor is yours.
Oh, I hate concluding something like this. Yeah, I'm Jeremy Millard. I'm an independent researcher, actually now retired, but still working too hard in Denmark. I actually worked a lot with AEIDL in the 90s, in the early days. So still a few people around from those times, I think. And my question is, and I apologize, I missed about 5 minutes, but I haven't heard much about the relationship between rural and urban areas and things like, city regions, which include obviously rural hinterlands. Maybe it's a pejorative word, I don't know. But I mean, I think it's crucial that we see rural development in a broader context, obviously in regional contexts. And I've done a lot of work on city region food systems, for example, which obviously require close cooperation between rural and urban areas and at the regional level as well. And part of that, of course, is what's happening in cities in terms of producing food, like aquaponics and hydroponics, even lab-based meat being grown in factories, all this precision fermentation, etc. I know this is not something that maybe directly affects rural areas because we still need them, of course, but that interplay between those new developments and the cities and their requirements and the need to see rural areas linking not just with each other but with their with cities in their region, certainly. That's something which I think is really important, and I haven't heard much discussion about that, but maybe this was off topic to some extent. So
thank you. By no means is off topic. Actually, the original idea was to also involve, well, first of all, as the coordinator could say, the dynamics, urban-rural dynamics, are integrated in some elements of the projects that we have presented today. But beyond that, interestingly enough, original plan was to also have contribution from the RURACTIVE project. RURBANIZE project. So it's very similar. The RURBANIZE project, which is about relations between urban and rural areas, precisely on the smartness, smart rural development, but actually how it actually works in conjunction with urban areas. That's something we're going to do work, and we'll have a similar event like this in the near future to precisely discuss the urban dimension, the urban-rural dimension. But beyond that, just to highlight, we are involved. AEDL is involved in a project, for instance, called Granular, which is about identifying rural data, but also identifying functionalities, urban-rural functionalities, rural functional rural areas, and there's a lot of leading work on that, including issues like territorial impact assessment and rural proofing. So therefore, rest assured that this is some of the lines that we are actually working on. We thought that for a number of logistical reasons, that's enough for a morning without enlarging that, but actually that will be the subject of one of our next events in the framework of URBANIZE. So keep you posted on that. Well, I want to keep to the time. We know also Monday mornings, as I say, is busy periods. I don't know if, because I know that President was, Marta Marczis was also quite committed, but I don't know if she's still around. Marta, are you still around? I don't see. Ah, yes, sorry.
I'm here.
Sorry.
I just went to the other monitor.
I give you the floor on the challenge to summarize in a few words what you felt about the day.
Oh my God, it's very difficult. I'm fully lost in different information and interesting thoughts. So I just want very briefly thanks to the participation of all who woke up this morning and joined this meeting. And the presentations, the great presentation of all who gave presentation today. And I'm asking you, when is the next meeting? Do you know?
Well, there will be the projects themselves, and I also take the chance to highlight, they will be extremely useful if those of you still with us could fill this poll, satisfaction poll that you see now on your screen popping out. Okay. But coming to the answer to the question to our President Marta, yes, there will be at the beginning of the year a RURACTIVE forum. We're going to discuss some of the elements of this. The European Innovation Forum will also be that, but then you're right, we're still looking into how we're going to do the next ELIF meeting, where some of these issues, for instance, like was discussed earlier about urban policy, will be discussed. I think we have to come to a solution, to an identification of a date soon, but with no doubt those who contributed today, those who registered today and couldn't make it, are more than welcome and will actually be contacted in case they can't join us for the next steps of the discussions.
There were some messages about the information, how the information are available. So please repeat. What is the follow-up? How participants can read the
Well,
presentation, PowerPoint presentation.
You don't have to worry because we will circulate the presentations and the link, the presentation video to everybody who registered today. And that will include an event report where we'll summarize some of the things we have said today, and particularly the contributions from our project coordinators and those who contributed to from the floor. We're also made available the presentations as well in that same communication. And then when we organize the next meeting, like the RURACTIVE Forum or the FUTURAL Rural Innovation Forum, those who obviously, by registering here, express an interest in having a further discussion, and believe me, with much more time for interaction than today, today was just an appetizer, they will be also invited in case they would like to join us. So
thank you, Serafin, and thank you for the organizational work and your work as moderator. And have a nice week. It's for everybody, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.